What if you could transform your biggest problem into an opportunity and see real-time transformation and learn from the challenges of some of the most intriguing leaders in the world? That's what the signature leadership process, the PRO format, is all about. You see, through a combination of executive, speed coaching, and handwriting analysis, I help world-class leaders not only uncover their authentic selves, but communicate their vision in a way that's personable, relatable, and motivating. Now, we're going to go through what's called my PRO framework. We start with the person's problem, we then look how to reframe it through their handwriting, and then look at the opportunity about how they can implement a solution, all within 20 minutes. And you're going to see some of the most intriguing authors, thought leaders, musicians, athletes, and more in a way they've never shared before, through their stories, through their real challenges that they have with a bit of vulnerability. And through that, you're going to be able to project your own challenge to see what you could learn from their process that they're going through as leaders. I'll see you on the Signature Leadership Podcast to see what you can do to transform your biggest problem into an opportunity for immediate growth. Hi, welcome to the Signature Leadership Show Cumulative Highlight Edition, where we take a step and we look back to the previous episodes over the past few months. In this Signature Cumulative Highlight episode, we're going to be looking at Alyson Schafer, who is a family counselor, a TV personality, a columnist, and a best-selling author.
If I was going to maximize your intel, I was going to go for a problem I need solved. So yeah, I'm going to put it out there. Procrastination, Jamie. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person on the planet. I'm not the only leader that has issues with procrastination. I don't procrastinate on everything. Jamie, this what's interesting is that I have this passion project, which you would think by the name Passion Project that it should be that intersection of my desires and my intellect. And this is where I'm told that this is where everything's supposed to come alive, where you're supposed to have endless energy when you finally have that intersection of your passion project. And unfortunately, I've got the exact opposite, that when I get closer to my passion projects, that's when I get the most shut down. And so that's when I tend to procrastinate, not in all areas, but specifically to that realm.
Now, one thing I do see in your handwriting is if you look at your signature, which is at the bottom, it is large, it is confident, it is clear on who you are professionally. And I like to focus sometimes on the possibility, not the problem, in the sense that you have all the answers. You do know professionally what the best choices are for you, because there's very little indecision in the actual signature. What I want to talk about in the next few minutes is how do we close the gap between your confident self. I've seen it, so maybe that's a little biased, but I've seen you one of the most confident, most brilliant presenters I've ever seen. We've shared the stage on TV. I've seen you in action, and your actual signature, which is what you want the world to see. That is your brand. That's your authority in the world. That is very clear and strong. So I want to know what's holding you back, that when no one's looking, there is a lack of decision, and I would even say a little bit of a lack of confidence in what that next step is. Next up is Nenad Bach, a Croatian-American recording artist, composer, performer, producer, and the founder of Ping Pong Parkinson. Let's jump right in if that's okay with you. Can you share with us one problem, an urgent problem, something you're dealing with right now in your life?
I have 40 hovering helicopters in the air. And I cannot land them all at the same time because they will crash. I am doing too many things, something that I shouldn't be doing, but I'm always compelled to do it. And I don't know how to say no, or I create something that I shouldn't be creating. Then I put myself into the dire straits. It's difficult times. It's difficult. I don't know how to manage the time, actually. And time is all we have, actually. That time is the only commodity that really counts.
And the next thing I was going to say to you is that you're putting off something important right now. So even though you have all this going on, the first thing you mentioned, and you mentioned it in a way where your voice kind of went down, you kind of mumbled. You have a beautiful voice. You are as charismatic as anybody I know. And when you said that, logistics, legal, your whole body language clumped inward. Now, I'm not here to analyze body language. I'm not a body language expert. But what I know is in the handwriting, there is procrastination. I mean, Mandela had procrastination. Some of the most extraordinary activists and leaders in history put off things that they didn't want to do. And right now I'm seeing in you, you're putting off certain things. And I'd ask you, what important things are you putting off that you need to do now? You need to do when we get off this call, because it seems to be in your T-bars, they're to the left. You're not following through on a few key areas.
No matter how much money or fame you have, you still have to do things on your own. People cannot do it for you. You have to do things for yourself. Thank you for saying it, because although I know whatever you said, I already know. But convincing me, now I have desire to do that. So that's different. When desire is stronger than pain, then you can follow.
Nenad has Parkinson's, and he is a musician. So this has been a challenge of how to play instruments and perform as Parkinson's takes its hold on some level, but that's another story. Nenad is doing more for this in a positive way than I could possibly imagine. So let's look at the writing now. And yeah, it's perfect. If you can just hold it there for a second. So these are a few things I'm seeing. You, Nenad, have too much going on. Now, you've told me that, but in the first two lines of writing, they're completely mashed together. And when one line is tied to the next, it tends to be you have too many irons in the fire. You're pushing on too many cylinders. It's exhausting you energetically, even though there is a lot of energy there in spite of all these challenges. So the first thing is you need to find some alignment between where you're putting your energy and where you're putting your focus.
Erica M., a Canadian icon and entrepreneur.
What is a challenge or a problem that you're currently facing? And we are going to explore it. And then we're going to look at your handwriting to see if additional insights can be gleaned from the handwriting into discovering or going deeper into that challenge.
Okay, well, that's great, because I actually wrote down my challenge so I could read it to you so I can be really specific, okay?
Perfect.
And it's fascinating. The way that you described me is, in fact, my question, which is, I am known for so many things, being a broadcaster, like a thought leader, a writer, a songwriter, an entrepreneur, I run a business, CEO, but I feel like I focus on perhaps too many things. And I'm hoping you can help me, Jamie, to help me focus on what my energies would be best spent on. And for bonus points, why should I be focusing on those things? I mean, it's so hard, even when I'm putting together a resume for something like LinkedIn, I can't even do it because I don't even know how to describe myself or my superpowers.
Now, one thing where there's a little bit of a gap here, which took me a few moments because I'm staring at this, it's not a negative thing. It's more of just something to be aware of with a little bit of this indecisiveness, is your T-bars on the second line. And for those of you watching this, if you have this stroke, it tends to go in an upward curve. There's an upward curve there. That upward curve, though this is a small sample size, that tends to be, I'm not sure, like moving from to something else and not giving it a chance to fully blossom. Now, clearly in your career, you would not be where you are if you were someone who jumped from thing to thing without giving it a chance to grow. But in this particular case, what it might be showing is there's a little bit of that with these different projects, the lack of certainty to follow through with it, so the mindset is, I am interested in these things, but the lack of power in the decision-making process to tell yourself you're going to do it or write it down and then follow through and see in the midst of uncertainty. You don't have to do it now, but on the T-bar, I'll show you. Every time you cross your small T, it almost looks like a cross, is to cross your T-bar from left to right, high and strong, and not with that concave, which is a bit wishy-washy, which is not you. That's the lack of confidence in your goals. And every time you write that high T-bar, is think of a line. For example, sometimes people say, we achieve who we are, not what we want. So an example of achieving would be, why am I, Eric M., so successful in my creative endeavors, like writing a book? Why am I? It's already to be in that place of the why and not in an accusatory why, like, why is this not working out, which would be the opposite mindset. So as those T-bars are high, it's asking some type of a mindset question that reminds you of how not only successful you are based on how you define your success, but how confident you are in your success as if it already happened in a way that feels very natural. Why am I such an effective writer of YA novels, of a YA novel? Why is the course that Leslie and I creating reaching our ideal demographic of speakers and consultants and coaches and taking off? And while you have whatever that thought is to raise that T-bar, and what this is going to do is change your writing, and it changed those neural pathways. Just like music has an imprint on our brain, so does our handwriting, which is shown to be directly connected from what our brain does to what our hand does. There's something in handwriting analysis that says the act of writing starts in the brain. It sends a signal down the nervous system to your hands that you write with, and your fingers carry out the directive of your brain. So your writing paints a picture of what you think.
Leslie Ehm, the author of Swagger, the Wall Street Journal bestseller, who also is a speaker and a coach.
The reason I wanted to talk to you today was because I feel like I'm entering this sort of third trimester of life, this final stage. I'm 58 years old, and I am a grotesque overachiever. I come from a long line of grotesque overachievers. They're all in my family. We're all entrepreneurs, and I've always been told that I could do anything, which is great, but also sets the bar very high, because if I can do anything, I really should be doing everything. And I've done that my whole life. I have just gone and gone and gone and gone. And I'm getting to the stage in my life where I've ticked so many things off my bucket list. I've done amazing things. I've been lucky enough to work in my place of purpose, but I'm kind of like, when is it enough? Like, when can I just go, I'm good. I don't need to achieve at this level anymore. I don't need to always have an end product, an output, a thing. I can just kind of be. It makes me feel so uncomfortable, because I don't know what I would be without the doing, the human doing, as opposed to just the human being. So that's what I wanted to get some insight on.
Is there another goal or another path that we haven't talked about that you've thought about, but you haven't gone down that path?
Yes. I mean, there's things that I kind of would love to do, but they feel more self-serving. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to being in service. And I feel like, and I'll probably cry when I talk about this, but I feel like if I'm not being in service, then I am not fulfilling my purpose. And even if there's other purpose, like, we've talked about, I started to paint a little while ago, and I love that. I really want to write a book. I want to write a novel, not a business book. I want to write a novel, but it feels self-serving. And I'm not comfortable with that. Not yet.
What I'd love to do now is if you could show me your handwriting, which I asked you to do just earlier, which was I asked you to write 2 sentences. I told you and their purple people eater friend, take that silly monkey and go back to the darn zoo, which I choose those letters because they show different letters that I can take a quick snapshot. And really what I'm trying to do with signature leadership is I want to tell you what's going to make or break success, although there's no absolutes when it comes to what you just shared with me, and see if there's anything beneath the surface, because the way it works is the act of writing starts in your brain. It sends a signal down the nervous system to your hands, and your fingers carry out the directive of your brain. So your writing paints a picture of what you think. And you could be a bit skeptical about this, but when you see that it's really not about reading you or your body language, it's really about the strokes on the page and how they can contribute to really getting a better understanding of where you are. And in your case, you're so self-aware, it might just be adding layers of reinforcement of what you're thinking, and that can be helpful too. Let's look at a few things that pop out. Your eyes, your capital I, which you can look at later, it's an interesting format. So the I might show me parents. And when I look at your parents, what I'm seeing, and I can prove it based on this, it's again, not what I know of you or interpretation, is when you think of your mother, you're actually looking backward and reflecting. It's all the way to the back. And the father line is actually not really prevalent right now, which all that might mean is that you're high achievement, you're trying to drive forward, you're wanting to in some way satisfy or live up to expectations, might be connected to the mother figure in particular, because it's going back, it's large, but when a writing goes back, there's sometimes issues with self-esteem that's connected to a certain parent. Let's see the handwriting one last time.
And what does my signature say, Jamie? What is that? What does it tell you?
Can you move it a little bit closer?
You know, just my signature.
Yeah. Okay. What it says is you're at a point in your life where you put your family first. So the actual writing of the last name, or whatever perceived as that, it's larger, it's more dynamic than your name. So you're confident, but the family is your precedent. You're facing forward to your family, and there's great satisfaction, and there's this bond of what can I do in service to my family. Other things about the name itself is you've got extraordinary fast thinking mind. There's incredible fluency. So even when I've just been asking these questions in kind of a slow, methodical way, you're already thinking 10 steps ahead of whatever I just said, and you can go as fast as the other person. So that's a sign of high intelligence. You see that with speakers, with writers in particular. Again, even if I didn't know what you do, that is the sign. I've seen that with authors and podcast hosts and people like that.
Next is Mark Bowden, a world-renowned body language expert, keynote speaker, and best-selling author.
Why is it important for you to create more content on a consistent basis?
Sales. It's as simple as that. My content, from what I understand from other people, and the reason I make it is because it's really helpful. I only make content that's helpful for people. The more helpful I am to more people, the more they buy what I have to sell. And I've got responsibilities, here for the company and everybody at home, and so there's a responsibility to, turnover. And the more I can help people, the more that happens. So it's marketing, really.
What obstacles might be encountered in this quest to consistently create over the next 6 months based on what we've just shared?
So there are no physical obstacles. There are the only obstacle now in my mind is the one of, because I know the solution to creating more content, you just make it, and you don't care about quality because you make it disposable, because this is, what we're doing now is pop. What I'm making with you right now is tomorrow's trash. I'm not saying this is trash, but ultimately it will be forgotten. Anything stupid or idiotic or even really smart that any of us say right now will be in the, the garbage bin of the digital garbage bin of tomorrow. Yeah. And so, and look how easy it is for us to make content together, because this is, we get on well and this is a good team. But then if you said to me, hey, Mark, would you take on the responsibility of doing this with once a week? It's like, I don't know whether I like you, Jamie. We're good friends. We get on well, but I'm not sure I can take that responsibility with you because I have so many other responsibilities. And if you were to say, hey, well, Mark, you could hire me, you could outsource me to help, I'd still go, yeah, I know I'm paying you, but you're still my responsibility. Just because you hand over money, it's still a responsibility as far as I'm concerned.
So what advice would you give me if these positions were reversed when it comes to overcoming that obstacle of wanting to create quality content on a regular basis for the purpose of increasing my reach in order to sell more as a speaker, as a consultant, and all the other things that I do if I were you?
Yeah. So here's what I would do, and it's maybe what the question is a good one because it's maybe what I need to go back to myself, which is the advice I consistently give people. And if anybody wants this advice right now, here it is the way you make consistent content is to understand this is pop and it's tomorrow's garbage. And it's not about quality. It's about getting it finished and getting it done and moving on to the next one and the next one and the next one, because it is by writing a lot of songs that you eventually maybe have a hit, that everything, falls into place, that you maybe have something that people go, that's brilliant and could live forever. And the rest of it, you've got to treat as digital, in this case, digital garbage. So, I probably need to just go back to that help, which I know has helped other people, and go, look, just make it, just create, and stop trying to worry, stop the worry that it's any good. It doesn't matter whether it's any good. That it being good, like the audience will decide.
We'll then turn to Laura Gassner Otting, author, also a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, a catalyst for change, an executive coach, and a media personality.
With all of the different successes and growth you've had the past few years as an author, as a speaker, as a consultant, as a thought leader, how will you, like Laura, and not just Laura, but Laura Gassner Otting, the whole you, measure success over the next year when this book is released from April on?
That is a question I haven't asked myself yet, because I'm afraid that the answer that I want to say is like, it's going to make a list. I'm going to be booked like crazy to speak at events. I'm going to become a regular contributor on, national TV. But honestly, I mean, between you and me and the lamppost, it's probably that I want my husband and my kids to be proud of me. And that's probably really all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have that, then the rest of it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And nobody's gonna like come to my funeral and be like, that 5th time she was on Good Morning America, that was the one where I knew she was valuable, right? Like nobody cares. So I guess I just need to remember whose praise and whose love and whose respect I actually want, and just ignore everyone else.
I love that. And I got goosebumps too, because I think that will be my answer when the next thing that I'm proud of comes up, to want to do it for my wife and my kids. So how do you build on the momentum of really diving deeply into who you authentically are, not just with the book, but in how you promote this book over the next year?
Good question. That's a very good question. And this was such a deeper conversation than I ever. I know you, and I know we've had deep conversations, but I didn't expect it to go this deep this fast. So like, I'm a little like, how do I do that? I almost feel like I want to just like get a giant sticky note and stick it on every screen I look at and just be like, whose opinion matters, right? Like, do they count? And like in Limitless, I talk about not giving votes to people in our lives who shouldn't even have voices. And yet I'm trapped by the same thing. So I think it's making sure that I have constant reminders of myself for each of the places where I get triggered: social media, the comparison, prison, all of that. And just making sure that that I come back to this conversation and I remember who I am and the sort of strength of the Laura, and that the rest of it, if I just worry about who I need to worry about, the rest of it takes care of itself.
And then there's Dorie Clark, the Wall Street Journal bestselling author and executive education professor at Duke University's Fuqua School of Business.
It's also a form of almost like a runner at the start of a race and like really wants to take off. And in the short term, it's really figuring out, okay, you know, how fast do I start? You know, do I pace myself or do I just shoot forward and then deal with, you know, whatever happens around me? And what I would ask you moving forward is, so we can turn this conversation into something implementable by the end of the few minutes we have left, is, you know, it sounds obvious, but can you clarify, even though you just did, more succinctly, what do you want? What do you want right now with this situation?
Yeah, that's a very good question to ask always. Good coaching question, Jamie. What I want, I guess I recognize that the variable about my mom and her health is not something that I have insight into. It's, you know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? So I would like clarity about that, but that is not to be had in the universe. So I just kind of have to take that as it comes, I guess. So I think that what I would like is to find a way so that I can maximize the amount of time that I spend with my girlfriend and have it feel good and not like I am sort of giving up prematurely on a thing that I was intending to do.
The eye loop in the first eye, that shows that is a subconscious connection to your mother figure, right? Like, so it's there, yet with you, because we're all paradoxical in different ways, you have made decisions in your life. You might have made decisions throughout your life more independently and autonomously in terms of charting your own path. And you see that because the capital I on the it looks like a Roman numeral 1 with a shelf at the top and a shelf at the bottom. And so even though there's a connection to your mom in terms of on a subconscious level, she's had a significant influence on your life, you still make decisions autonomously. And you've actually, throughout your life, if you look at the Clark, actually, it looks like the K has a loop in it like this, and there's a sharp edge on the top. That tends to be, and this is all due respect, I've seen this with some of the leading entrepreneurs in the world. For example, Steve Jobs had this trait. It's the go to heck K. That is defiance against authority. And you also combine that with a small d with a tiny loop throughout, which is on the second line on friend, people eater friend. You do that throughout. Yes. That combination of the go to heck K and that small loop is you're an independent thinker. You do not just follow the status quo, and that's helped you make decisions throughout your life. So I would ask you, and that's what do you want? That is the simplest coaching question. But in this case, I'm going to say respectfully and not selfishly, not what your mom wants in this case, not what your girlfriend wants. I think what you want and trusting your own instincts based on what you've done in the past to get to where you are can be helpful. There's one more point I want to make on that. How are you hearing this?
Yeah, good. I'm loving it. I'm loving it, Jamie. Keep it going, man.
And then finally, Susan RoAne, author of the multi-million best-selling book, How to Work a Room, and a keynote speaker.
So can you give a few tips about, especially at the beginning, how do you make people feel comfortable when you walk into a room full of strangers or people you don't know particularly well, where you want to make a good first impression through small talk?
Okay, I'm going to do the first thing for all of which our watchers and our listeners. I want you to embrace small talk. There is nothing small about it. If you read the research and the leaders that are quoted, yeah, big talk's really important. But this is what I say when I get my presentations. Famine is important. Is this what you want to open up a conversation with? Who wants to do that? Famine, war, pestilence. You start with, oh, have you been to this venue before? We've gone to fundraisers for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. What brought you here? Then you find out someone has a relative or a friend or someone's a survivor, etc. If you focus on what you have in common with people, where you are, oh, did you find a parking space? By the way, if you find a parking space in front of any venue in any city, you already have a conversation. You've got bragging rights because nobody finds a parking space in front of the venue. And I can hear some of you say, well, that sounds so insignificant. No, it is not, because it's the common issue. Even the weather. People say, well, I don't talk about the weather. Yeah, well, I live in San Francisco. We had atmospheric river rains. If you don't think people around the country were talking about that. Right now in northern Italy, they're having major floods. People are going to talk about the weather. They're going to talk about what's in common for everyone. Also, I'm going to confess, I did not start a business to make money. And I believe that's why it's been successful. What I did is, oh my God, my teacher friends, 1,200 of us got layoff notices. What can I do to help people make this change? And I designed a career change workshop for teachers. And yes, I'm political, so I got it funded and I'm really good at that. But then all of a sudden, the 3 nonprofit career change workshops were over and we had crowded crowds because of PR and mentions in newspaper. But I had someone who made up this word, my femtor, say to me, you have 100 people on a waiting list. My dear girl, you have a business.
So thank you for representing what this podcast was meant and the intention when I started it, which was helping world-class leaders uncover their authentic selves. I believe that of all the world-class leaders who will be listening to this, your words and wisdom will help them uncover their authentic selves when they want to connect with others and work a room. So if we're back together in a few months, celebrating this passion project and how it's evolved and grown beyond what you ever could have imagined was possible, what are the things we're celebrating?
We are celebrating that I got it done. We are celebrating that it is reaching above my expectations for key performance indexes. So I'm getting more viewership, more engagement than I ever anticipated. Yeah. That it surprisingly creates some secondary piece that I hadn't even anticipated in terms of traction around my brand. So, it caught the attention of something or someone, and it opened the door to some other opportunities so that I really was able to move to a whole other level in all my other operations that I hadn't even considered. That wasn't part of the motivation.
Definitely having written a book. That would be the most incredible thing. And to have launched a successful new initiative with my sister, which brings us closer together and helps people become more confident when they need to take the stage in some way. I think both those things would make me very happy, both financially and emotionally.
Totally. To move it from the images and feel it. So, the brain there's a lot of images. The brain will put together stories, what's happening in a lot of images, and it'll attach feelings to them. And the moment you use your out loud voice, it's had to turn it into a series of phonics that create words that another human being could hopefully understand. And so there's a whole I mean, it's like, that whole thing of, well, write it down. The moment something's written down, it's a different thing. Oh, we have it in a legal, you have it in a legal sense. All right, well, write it down and sign that then. It's like, well, isn't it good enough if I just say it and you shake my hand? It's okay, but it's not as good as if you write it down, sign it, and then, everybody knows you did that. Everybody knows what was said. I think there's a fundamental difference when you say something out loud, for sure.
That's a good question. I mean, I do want to be able to spend more time with my girlfriend. She has been, we've really made an effort. Like, we've both been traveling a lot, but it's onerous, to have to hop on a plane every other thing. So it would be nice if we had a more consistent schedule of when we're actually living together. She's an academic, so she does have some flexibility, at least at certain times of year, to be down with me in Florida. And she seems willing to do that. But there's lots of chunks where she's needed on campus in Boston. And I think hopefully something we're celebrating, God willing, is that, my mom is still very healthy and independent and doesn't need to be looked after. Although I do, I like to see her a lot, but hopefully she has the flexibility to, and the health to be able to stay okay. And then the third thing is my goal that I set for myself in 2016 is that I wanted at the time to learn to write musicals and to get a show on Broadway in 2026. We just had a staged reading of my show in New York, a few weeks ago as of the time of this recording. And we are marching on, and our goal in the near term, which seems possibly attainable, is to have a off-Broadway show sometime in the next year and a half or 2 years. And so that's hopefully also something that is factoring in terms of successes.
Well, folks, that brings us to another fantastic episode of the Signature Leadership Show, where we help world-class leaders uncover their authentic selves. We hope you enjoyed this special compilation, a journey through some of the most memorable moments from our past episodes. It's been a blast reliving those enlightening conversations and incredible stories with you all. And remember, if you missed any of our previous episodes, now's the perfect time to catch up. As we wrap up today, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to all our amazing guests who have shared their knowledge, insights, and stories with us. It's their voices and experiences that have made this podcast what it is today. If you've been with us since the very beginning, thank you for your unwavering support. And if you're a new listener, welcome to the Signature Leadership Show. We have a treasure trove of past episodes waiting for you to explore, so be sure to check them out. Before I say goodbye, remember to subscribe, rate and review our podcast. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us improve with each episode. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Jamie Mason Cohen to stay updated on future episodes and exciting content.